Old school RuneScape has a lot of bosses, and on my way to completing the combat achievements, I have to tackle all of them. Over the last few months, while I've been working through those tasks, I recorded a single drop from each encounter to help answer the question, how much money can you make with one drop from every boss? But first, what qualifies as a boss? Basically, if it's on the high scores and it gives loot, I'm doing it. The only exception I'm making is that if it's a piece of content that has multiple modes, like the Gauntlet and the Corrupted Gauntlet, I'm only requiring myself to do one of them, though sometimes I did both anyway. I also threw in some bonus bosses and content into the mix just for fun's sake. Let's get started. First up, the White Light Simulator. I'm over 100 chests dry here. Will I break the streak in this video? No, but a solid 282k loot chest, and that is going to be our starting total. I'm really pushing my PVM limits with this next boss. That's right, we're going to be taking on the Giant Mole. 3 hits with Darox later, and I've got myself 34k for the bag. The Calphite Queen has been in the game for over 18 years, and you might think that a boss that old would just be a pushover, but she'll smack you around like Will Smith, man. And for my troubles, a massive 2k loot addition. Our first bonus boss and gorgeous Barbarian Assault babe, the Penance Queen, is next. No, she doesn't drop anything herself, but I spent an hour playing Barbarian Assault with RuneScape's finest so that I could get enough points for a high level roll. There's so many good possibilities here. I could get a pet, a dragon chain body, or a variety of different uses. I got a granite shield. Despite what you might hear on the street, I am not terrified of the wilderness, and I took out the uwu looking tentacle monster for another 4k GP. This is definitely one boss that we do not need Reddit fan art for. I'm going back to my PVM roots with the 6 Big Bad Barrows brothers next. Unfortunately, it's not quite like the good old days when the Guthan's War Spears were 10 mil each, but I did manage to add another 54k to the loot total. You either love it or you hate it. The Corrupted Gauntlet is next. I have no idea why, but I've always been a huge fan of this content. 11 minutes later, and it is raining down rune on me, 282k. Obor might be the big scary free-to-play boss, but I was a brave boy today, and I took him out for an 11k drop. Nex has been very kind to me before, but this time I'm leaving with just a bad case of bronchitis and 20k in loot. Next up is the Chaos Fanatic. I don't know why this guy is so obsessed with the Chaos Elemental, but this is definitely the type of dude to have a furry avatar as his Twitter picture. No judgment though, just 23k in loot. If you enjoy splashing special attacks and farming unnoted gems as drops, Corp is just the boss for you. Fortunately for me, I managed to walk away with some Onyx Bolts, giving me a 1.5 mil boost to the total. Next up is the Dagonoth Kings, and I already know you haven't seen this level of prayer flicking since Exact's 40 combat Infernal Cape. Dagonoth Supreme down first, followed by Mr. Prime, and lastly Rex. In total, we netted an additional 31k GP from the 3 big boys. Abyssal Sire? More like the Abysmal Sire. I'm so sorry, I got a 45k drop. I used to have to wake up at 5 AM to find worlds for Bandos on my UIM, but today it's instanced so I can sleep in and farm these 20k drops all day. I don't know about you, but I am a huge fan of getting attacked by PKers 15 times an hour, which is why I absolutely love Vedion so dearly. 300 gold ore from a rare uninterrupted KC. Speaking of Mod Reach's masterpieces, I also tackled Venenatus for 19k and Callisto for another 60k. The wiki says this is a boss, and it might seem tame now, but if you're an OG, then you remember that back in the day when dangerous randoms were a thing, this chicken was terrifying. Scary or not, only 500 GP in loot from me today. The deranged archaeologist himself isn't very scary, but I'm absolutely terrified at the idea of being saddled down with 30k in student loan debt after spending 5 years getting a degree in archaeology at Varrock State University. He could only afford to drop me 3k. Now for every Ultimate Iron Man's worst nightmare, Hispori. No bucket gang, but I did get 27k in maple seeds. Just what I wanted. Dear Reddit, it's not much, but I finally managed to beat Jad. My prize is 8k toggle and a fire cape, so let's call it like 50k I guess. I know you're going to comment and be like, Zort, you did Jad, you need to do Zuck too. And listen, YouTube commenter, it took me over 200 hours to get my first Infernal cape. I just can't put myself through the stress and anxiety of grinding out another one just to get a few toggle for this video. Wait, I play Ultimate Iron Man. I love punishing myself. I gave it my best shot, but I really need to get back to focusing on real life responsibility. One more big hit, let's go. Is that it? That's it. That is it. That was for you guys. I hope you're happy. I lost so much hair from that Inferno grind that I look like I'm cosplaying Father Lawrence now. So please drop me a like and a sub so that I can save up for hair plugs. Prophet Snake, Penny Python, Stock Market Serpent, whatever you want to call it, Zorte came through for us with a magic Fang drop. A massive 5.7 mil GP that is going to really help our total. I'm convinced this place is just Iron Man purgatory. Wintertodt supply crate giving me a very bland 10k in items. How fitting. The first Slayer boss making an appearance this episode, Cerberus delivered the goods, if you consider 56k to be the goods. Birofida, Briofida, Brightofida. It was 13k, we're moving on. The only boss most hardcores are brave enough to face, Kraken. Seaweed. Surely Kriar is going to deliver after 20 minutes of prayer flicking for KC. Well, Settled would be happy with that one, I guess. Pro tip, do not take on the KBD with the Dragon Scimitar. I did get 690 iron arrows to start an iron arrow collection on my Ultimate Iron Man though. I'll be honest with you, out of every boss that I did in this video, the Priptinous Rabbit was hands down the worst. I literally spent over an hour clicking enter and exit on the cave door to get a KC for this video. I did manage to secure the drop though, the Crystal Grail worth a whopping 223k. In the end, it was definitely worth it. I'm lying, it was not worth it. Zort, I want more Gauntlet content. Alright, relax, here's more normal Gauntlet content, 20k. Thermi is up next with one of our worst drops so far, 300 air runes or 1500 GP. TOB is some of my absolute favorite content in the game. It needs a little bit of love to make it a bit more accessible, but regardless, I knocked out a run for a very respectable 794k in loot. In the depths of the Korent Catacombs, we've got a date with Skatizo. I know this is a mid-level boss, but this thing always slaps me around. 115k drop plus some untradables. Raids 3 Tombs of Amasket normal mode is up next. I absolutely cannot recommend trying out this content if you haven't already. I completed a level 190 raid for a 1 mil reward. Let's compare that with a level 305 expert run next. Was it harder? Yes, but only half as lucrative this time, 496k to the total. I've got my finest range gear on for a trip at Sarah God Wars, and well, I'm gonna let the live commentary speak for itself on this one. One Commander Zilliana KC later. Dude, there's no... Oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. You can't... Oh my god. What? You know you're running out of creative boss ideas when you have 2 archaeologist bosses in the game. Knocking out my final task for the crazy version this time, 99k in Onyx Bolt tips. I've never done Hydra before this, but I knocked out the absolute cleanest KC for a sweet 112k and an Elite Diary task. I do not like spiders, so let's do a little bit more spider squashing. 12 Dragon Bone drop or a quick 34k in cash. I needed to get spiders off the mind, so I'm going to send a much more relaxing Temporos KC, and I was rewarded with 9 Manta Rays. Every mid-game Iron Man's worst enemy and her final bonus boss, Lizardman Shaman. They owe me another Dragon Warhammer, but today I walked away with just a bad PKer starter kit. Krill surely has to be one of the biggest claimers of hardcore Iron Man lives, but I escaped by the skin of my teeth and with 23k in loot. Scary Blue Dragon and feeder of gold farmer families across the world, Vorkath is my next assignment, and after a very questionable KC, 104k. Gotta love when a boss has worse drops than its normal variation. I smashed through the Grotesque Guardians for 4 combat achievements and a rune pickaxe. If you need a relaxing way to unwind before bed, I would definitely not recommend Scorpia, especially when the drops look like this. Speaking of nightmare bosses, the Nightmare of Ashihama is next. 5 minutes of spam clicking my food later, and I get more food to spam click. I'm genuinely unsure of how many people at Zolcano are real players, but I ran around with the robots for 3 minutes and claimed 84k in Addy ore. Our final boss to tackle is the Mimic, which graces us with one very handsome mahogany plank and an additional 500 blood runes for our clue loot. And with that, we've received 1 drop from every boss in old school RuneScape, but how'd I do? In all, I racked up an impressive 34.3 mil in loot, which was much better than I expected. Out of all the drops that I received, the worst drop was about 500 GP in feathers from the Evil Chicken, and the best drop was obviously the Ceradomin hilt from Ziliana. 1 KC from each boss is clearly not a good sample size, but just for fun, I calculated the average drop from each of these bosses to be about 700k. If we exclude the Magic Fang and Sarah Hild outlier drops, the average value is then 130k. As far as the worst boss experience goes, it was a toss-up between Vedion and the Priptonous Rabbit, and my personal favorite was absolutely the feeling of relief when I finally managed to secure my second Infernal Cape, and now I can procrastinate my next Zut KC for another 2 years. Lastly, if you enjoy unique old school videos like this one, I make all kinds of interesting stuff. Consider subscribing for more content in your sub box and leaving a like on your way out. As always, I'm Zort. Thank you so much for watching.